All right. You have, however, said you would favor an increase in the capital gains tax. As a matter of fact, you said on CNBC, and I quote, "I certainly would not go above what existed under Bill Clinton, which was 28%. It's now 15%. That's almost a doubling if you went to 28%. But actually, Bill Clinton in 1997 signed legislation that dropped the capital gains tax to 20%.
Right.
And George Bush has taken it down to 15%. And in each instance, when the rate dropped, revenues from the tax increased. The government took in more money. And in the 1980s, when the tax was increased to 28%, the revenues went down. So why raise it at all, especially given the fact that 100 million people in this country own stock and would be affected?
Well, Charlie, what I've said is that I would look at raising the capital gains tax for purposes of fairness. You can't take out a credit card from the Bank of China in the name of our children and our grandchildren and then say that you're cutting taxes, which is essentially what John McCain has been talking about. And that is irresponsible. I believe in the principle that you pay as you go. And you don't propose tax cuts unless you are closing other tax breaks for individuals, and you don't increase spending unless you're eliminating some spending or you're finding some new revenue. That's how we got an additional $4 trillion worth of debt under George Bush. That is helping to undermine our economy, and it's going to change when I'm president of the United States.
But history shows that when you drop the capital gains tax, the revenues go up.
Well, that might happen. Or it might not. It depends on what's happening on Wall Street and how business is going. I think the biggest problem that we've got on Wall Street right now is the fact that we've got a housing crisis that this president has not been attentive to, and that it took John McCain 3 tries before he got it right. And if we can stabilize that market and we can get credit flowing again, then I think we'll see stocks do well. And once again, I think we can generate the revenue that we need to run this government.
What steps will the Obama administration take to address the federal government's deficit and debt? What specific tax measures and or program changes will you recommend to Congress?
This has been the fiscally most irresponsible administration that we have seen. I mean, we have increased the national debt, almost doubled it since George Bush took office. It is now over $9 trillion. And that is money that we're all going to have to pay back. So we are using our resources in a way that's not sound. Second principle is a very simple principle called pay-go. If you want to cut taxes, you've got to cut spending. If you want to raise spending, you've got to raise revenue so that you have honest accounting. Right now, the federal budget is not honest. And unless we have good numbers, we can't end up dealing with this budget issue. Now, the biggest problem we have in terms of our budget, though, long term, and look, I want to eliminate no-bid contracts. I want to scrub the federal budget free of earmarks and pet projects that are not based on our national priorities. And that requires transparency in government. I talked earlier about the power of technology. One of the things that we've done, you'll be pleased to know that we call this the Google for Government bill.
And Google is in favor of it.
Yes. And what it does is we're going to set up a searchable database for every dollar of federal spending so that we can track it, which means that we'll be able to, journalists and ordinary citizens and think tanks and advocacy groups will be able to see if money is going to a bridge to nowhere instead of going to a bridge to somewhere. We'll be able to challenge it in real time, and that's going to be important. But the last thing I was going to mention, and this is probably the biggest problem we have with the federal budget, is health care spending, Medicare and Medicaid. That's the big budget buster. That's the scary thing out there that will be like the blob. It will just consume everything unless we do something about it now. And again, technology is part of the answer, and innovation is going to be part of the answer in reducing these costs. The reason that healthcare costs are skyrocketing, it's not so much that the population's getting older. That contributes a little bit to it. But the main problem is healthcare inflation goes up 6, 8, 10% per year. It's unsustainable. That will probably be the biggest savings item for our federal budget if we do it right. And